It's 6:35 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Let's take a look at today's front pages for you now. And We Three Kings is the front page of the Telegraph with a gorgeous portrait of the King, the Prince of Wales and Prince George. It's a lovely photo, isn't it?
Very nice. That picture's getting everywhere, actually. One day, my son and grandson, this will be yours, is what it says in the Express this morning.
Can you imagine that's what he actually said?
No. No, I mean, it's nonsense. He didn't say that at all.
It is quite nice, though, isn't it? Like seeing into the future in that way.
Yeah,
quite nice. The Mirror has an exclusive about Philip Schofield, saying Phil fights for his job.
Let's see what Ella Whelan and Andy Jones make out of all of these. Good to see you both this morning. Ella, Phil and Holly, right, this is going to get everyone talking. The Mirror's saying... There's been talk of this rift. The Mirror's saying Phil has spoken out.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is fascinating because so much of, as you know, breakfast television is about the personalities, is about the kind of the relationships between people and the presenters. Phil and Holly obviously have a long-standing relationship that seems to be on the rocks, and there were rumours, but there was nothing ever confirmed. And then Philip Schofield came out and released this unprecedented statement, as the Mirror is reporting. Neither Holly nor the team this morning knew about it, which mentioned the phrase "things haven't been easy for us for the last few weeks," which was seemingly admitting that the rumours about a rift were true. And instead of just keeping stum and letting the kind of tabloids do what the tabloids do in terms of the rumour mill, he seems to have come out and confirmed it, which has upset, allegedly, the Mirror says, has upset people in the team. But they go into the fact that there's been a lot of kind of rocky ground for the presenter, whether it's in relation to the very unfortunate conviction of his brother, whether it's the scandal about, or the sort of semi-scandal about the two of them queue jumping at the time of the Queen's funeral, and also, the fact that, Schofield has had a lot of kind of let's say, story about his personal life in the news for quite some time. And the rumour is that Holly Willoughby has tried to distance herself from it and manage her own career. But the fascinating thing is...
But over the time when he did all the coming out stuff, she was all over him like a rash.
Well, this is it. You kind of can't... He mentions in his statement, Holly is my rock, and all the rest of it. And there's I'm thinking of that, there's an American programme, that the name doesn't come to me, all about breakfast television presenters.
The Morning Show.
The Morning Show, that's it. And
the whole, by the way.
It's the fascinating thing is, and what the Mirror goes into is, there is the show, which we all know is part performance, but that the ITV bosses suggest that the thing with This Morning, and particularly shows on ITV, is that the viewers buy into and believe the reality of the relationship. So if it was found out that they did completely hate each other, that would break down the trust of viewers.
But why is it all about Phil may be out and not Holly may be out?
Well, I suppose he's the one that's been, it's been causing some of the rifts, and particularly with this statement. It seems like they describe it as an own goal, that he's put his foot in it. But it would be quite a big deal if it was over, because they have been sort of TV royalty for quite some time.
It's been almost 20 years now that they've been presenting This Morning. They come as a package deal, don't they?
They do, but Holly's been busy branching out, doing all sorts of other Saturday night TV shows and everything from sort of Celebrity Juice and beyond. So I think the number one thing that Ella touched on there is, to do that show, people have got to buy into the fact that you like each other and you're likeable. And if Philip Schofield's likeability has slightly had a dent in recent months, years, I think then that becomes a problem. Alison Hammond, who's on that show as well, her star is very, very much on the rise. Philip Schofield, is he getting the sort of work outside of that kind of programme as much as he was anymore? Is it time for a change? It feels to me a little bit, to use football parlance, this is the point where a Premier League manager's lost a lot of games and he's about to get the push, and it's a case of if not and when. I also think the other thing I'd say is, if two of you have had a rift, the only way of making that worse is by one of you coming out and saying there's been a rift and the other one saying nothing and being cross about it. So it doesn't really feel like, the very fact one of them's released a statement and one of them hasn't, that this rift has been particularly healed.
No, it's very difficult when you work with someone who is difficult, though. It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard work. Just
nightmare,
saying.
isn't
Having
it?
to pretend you like
Obviously
each
not
other.
here. Obviously not here.
Honestly,
a nightmare.
fake it till you make it.
We have the worst time, don't we?
Worst time. Nothing but row.
Every shift's a misery. Anyway. Anyway. I'm joking, love you. Andy, let's have a look at the eye, shall we? And Sunak is guilty of managed decline of the Tory party.
Yes, from one unhappy relationship to another. I mean, if you really want warfare on screens, it's the Conservative Party at the moment. The Conservative Democratic Organisation or something is having a meeting at the moment, which is all the big figureheads of the right side of the Conservative Party. That's Patel, that's Rees-Mogg, that's all of that sort of cabal. Priti Patel is going to accuse Rishi Sunak of managed decline of the party and the economy, I dare say. Nothing but contempt for our foot soldiers, she says. I like some foot soldiers if they're a bunch of sort of henchmen going about their day's work.
At war.
Roughing up the country. And she says Sunak is guilty of taking down a vote-winning political giant. I assume she means Boris Johnson rather than Liz Truss.
Yes.
And some Tory MPs, naming no names, I assume she means Sunak as part of this, have done more damage than any opposition could manage. So this is very much claws out. This is obviously after the evisceration in the local elections. It's obviously after various bumps in the road for the Conservative Party and Priti Patel, who has obviously been shuffled from front bench to a little bit further back.
Well, no, so she wasn't shuffled out. She left.
Yeah, quite.
That was her own decision.
Left, push, etc. But she's no longer in the spotlight the way she was. So again, there's the personal grudges here, etc. But the good ship Sunak isn't sailing very well at the moment.
No.
Is that fair though, Ella? Because I mean, yes, local elections were not good for the Tories last week, but the polls were suggesting that the gap was actually closing between Labour and the Tories under Rishi Sunak. He has been seen to be the man to get things done, like Windsor Framework, for example.
Yeah, but the problem with the Conservative Party is that they are obsessed with themselves. I mean, Andy is right in that they are, it's very, very... it's not very often I agree with Priti Patel, but she was right on the fact that they're doing more damage to themselves than the opposition can do. I mean, the opposition, Labour Party, is pretty much sitting back and just saying, carry on, here's some more rope to hang yourselves with, because their internal infighting has meant that a lot of policy making is ground to an absolute halt.
Yeah, but this, although you say you agree with Priti Patel, she may have a point, but saying it in public is part of the problem.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, I think everybody wants this government, or at least somebody in power, to be competent and solve some of the massive dramas that we are facing. I'm tired of this psycho nonsense from the Conservative Party. It's been going on for a year almost. So, and again, Priti Patel is pretending like she's had no involvement in this. I mean, most of the nonsense and drama that the government currently faces under Sunak were things that inherited from the Truss Johnson era, which was a significant part of. Certainly, again, the problems with the small boats, asylum seekers arriving in this country. Priti Patel, that was very much on her watch as well.
Yeah. Can we have a look at the Telegraph and Eurovision, Ella? Because it says, their headline says, the BBC is told to let President Zelensky speak at Eurovision. It's not the BBC's decision, it's the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union.
Exactly, and so it's all a bit of a mess, but the fact is that Tim Davies sits on the EBU, and the allegation is that whether or not he had something to do with discussions, he claims that he didn't. But the main story in this is that almost every single politician in this country anyway has come out and demanded that Zelensky should have been allowed to speak. Now, I am a big fan of Zelensky, and I think that the solidarity for Ukraine and its fight back against Russia is of the utmost importance. I also don't think that that a song contest, which yes, it always has been some level of political, should be forced to allow a world leader who is engaged in a political battle to make a speech. And so you can sum it up by what Rishi Sunak, someone from Downing Street said, which is that Zelensky and the people of Ukraine are fighting for what they're fighting for. It's not political, it's fundamental. And that's a complete misunderstanding, because it's not this, it is political. It's a deeply political issue. And to allow that to open the door to have addresses from world leaders in Eurovision would mean that, if there was another conflict in another year, if there was another issue, why wouldn't you let there, be announcements from anyone who had anything that they said, well, this is not political, it's just about human rights, or it's just about being nice, or whatever.
Yeah.
But in this case, doesn't it not seem like the elephant in the room? I mean, we're all meant to be in Ukraine watching the Eurovision Song Contest. Well, not all of us, but we had to. You're meant to be in Ukraine watching this, but we can't. We're hosting it because we came second because they're fighting a war. I mean, is that not the elephant in the room? Would you not want that?
Well, it does.
Address?
It does seem odd, but I also just don't think that Eurovision should be. The nature of Zelensky's address would be about trying to garner support for more arms, which I think is completely legitimate and he should do, not on the grounds of Eurovision, because it just sets a precedent.
He wasn't allowed to talk at the Oscars, was he?
Yeah.
No, right, but I would say in some ways this is a win for Zelensky either way. If there can ever a win can come out of such a terrible conflict at this moment, is him being barred from speaking. He's had all sorts of political figures rally to his defence. Rishi Sunak has actually taken time to release a statement saying he's disappointed he's not allowed to speak. And so, to my mind, he doesn't get any negatives from not speaking. He's actually drawn more attention to his cause and the Ukrainian cause than if he'd done a sort of speech about, I don't know, togetherness, peace and preventing invading armies, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that would have also been the tone of the speech. I'm sure it would have been about togetherness and peace and the spirit of Europe.
Do you think he should have done it then?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
See, I don't.
I think it's the elephant in the room, I think.
I don't. I just sort of think...
But I do think it should have been controlled.
I think this is a song contest.
Yeah.
And let it be a song contest.
Yeah.
As much as it is... There's always been politics in it, but much smaller politics.
Or at least everybody pretended that it wasn't political.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Ella, in the sense that it always has been political, Eurovision Song Contest, on some sort of level, even if it's just down to the voting and you vote for your nearest neighbour, which is what we so often see. But I don't know what my point was there. Where did I go with that?
I don't know, but it was excellent.
I'm sure it was going to be great, but I can't know what my point was. Oh, there you go. Ukraine should be at the heart of this singing competition.
Well,
it's where it's meant to be. So does it make sense to hear from their leader?
I know it's not the same, but plenty of people will be wearing yellow and blue. Plenty of people will be making sort of nods and support to the Ukrainian situation, as we all are. I'm very much Team Ukraine. But again, I can see the position of the contest itself saying, look, we can't allow any political manoeuvres in this contest because that's the whole point of why it was created in the first place. Yeah. It's supposed to be a non-political competition that united Europe after periods of strife and unrest.
Yeah, no, I think it's the right decision, but there you go.
It's got us talking, hasn't it, this morning? Let us know what you think of that. Should Zelensky have been able to speak tonight at the Eurovision Song Contest? Let us know, gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Let's just finish off a little bit, Andy, on The Guardian. Just a quick look at why Keir Starmer wants to start taking steroids.
What?
He's going to beef up. Yeah, he's going to fight them with his shirt off. Yeah, no, he isn't. He expect a bit unsure about his headline by The Guardian. It says expect Blair-style reforms on steroids, says Starmer, which means somebody's going to do reforms on the drug steroids. But actually, it's basically Blair-style reforms to the absolute max. He says that any government coming in now has a tougher job than Labour did in 1997. It signals another shift towards the centre ground, which the Conservatives are losing a little bit. Certainly being overrun by the sort of right-wing side of their party, if you believe the papers, and the working people, and I think we all agree with this, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, working people are sick of the Westminster bubble, they're sick of the Westminster way of doing things, and they need to get the public on side. And also there's a footnote of criticism of the removal of 4,000 EU laws. It's not necessarily because he says the laws are correct or incorrect, it's just that basically removing these laws, we haven't really thought about what we're going to do in the meantime, are there going to be gaps in our legislature, etc., etc. And The Guardian has done several pages on this, highlighting different things. It's quite low on policy, though, I know.
Yeah, I tell you what,
there's a lot of sort of stuff about, he says this, and a lot of sort of umbrella statements. Point A, we're going to do this. Point B, we're going to do this.
Well, they're not going to release any of that until closer to the election, are they?
No.
I mean,
I'm just left with an image. I'm very, look, the local elections are an absolute vindication to my mind of a dislike of the ruling party, and I think we agree with that. But the headline just leaves me with an image of Keir Starmer on steroids.
Yeah. I tell you what astounds me with this, Ella, is that these politicians all seem to be a bit surprised that winning the centre ground is how you win an election. I mean, A-level students know that. So why is it all? Why are people surprised by it now?
Well, I mean, I think because the Labour Party has gone from it's been such a shape-shifting machine in the last few days.
Party.
Well, yeah, but the Conservative Party have always sort of had their pretty solid base in terms of your kind of the South East voters, whereas the whole shifting nature of the Red Wall and the rest of that over the last few years in relation to Brexit, I think has thrown the Labour Party. But the thing I'd like to, if I ever got a chance to whisper in Keir Starmer's ear, is to remind him that people don't like Blair. I mean, Blair was not, particularly now, after, whether it's in relation to Iraq or also the way in which New Labour left the country, that, Blair just continuously repeating the line, we're going to be like Blair, we're going to be like Blair, is not necessarily going to be the vote winner I think he thinks it is.
Yeah, maybe.
He won a landslide, though, didn't he, Tony Blair? I mean, I know people's opinions of him has changed, but I suppose it's quite right Labour look at him and say, well, he was successful, maybe.
He was a winning candidate, yeah. Look, we need to leave it there. Andy, Ella, thank you both. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.